Beyond these hills is a hidden home, frozen in time from a not-so-distant past. Beautiful, but broken.
A lot of good and bad memories here.
Gregory Rich is the former Grand Chief of the Innu Nation. This, Davis Inlet, was his home. He was born here, married here. His children died here.
You guys remember the tragic story, February 1492?
Yes.
Those were my kids. They had the house fire. It's on the hills there.
On Valentine's Day 1992, Rich's 5 children and another child died alone while Gregory and his wife weren't home.
At the first couple of years, I couldn't come here. I couldn't go to where my house used to stand. I finally did after 2 years, 2.5 years. And that's when I began my journey in healing. I've been sober for close to 20 years now.
These images of children sniffing gas to numb the pain of consequences of a way of life ripped away. And the deaths of Gregory Rich's children were a catalyst for change. It forced the federal government's hand to act. They had to relocate the Mushuau Innu to a place with, at the bare minimum, running water and sewer. They also committed to decommissioning Davis Inlet. Big promises. Gregory Rich's older brother Hank had heard them before, decades and decades ago, before the Innu were relocated to Davis Inlet.
It used to be old Davis right here.
Right in front of you?
Yeah, the buried site is right there as well there too. There used to be only one house, the priest and all the...
Hank Rich lived his first 6 years in a tent here. His family and other Innu would follow the George River caribou herd. In the summers, they would fish. They traded at this Hudson's Bay Company outpost that's still standing today. A hard but rewarding life.
Yeah, we never have nothing to eat, like sugar. We have to go and get sugar out in the water.
Yeah.
Because we have to hunt here as well there too.
Right.
Hunt fish. There's lots of fish here on the river.
Rich remembers when the community of Old Davis was told by the provincial government, with help from the local priest, that they would be moved to a new community.
Where you go?
One with running water and heat. That relocation happened in 1967, moving the Innu to a new Davis Inlet surrounded by water, away from the caribou, away from purpose. But by 1993, only 5 homes had running water on this island for the priest, teachers, police, and nursing station. Water for drinking and washing had to be fetched daily. Buckets of human waste hung outside homes, or honey buckets were used in small rooms inside. Health was declining, addiction was rampant, and the Innu were fighting for their lives and sovereignty.
All right, let's go. Let's go.
The federal government relocated the Innu again in 2002, this time to a place of their choosing. They moved to Natuashish 20 years ago this year.
I'm more concentrated on the good parts, rather than dwelling on the negative kind of things. It doesn't make any sense for me to dwell on the past, life goes on, right? Yeah. Whenever there is a...
John Newey is the chief of the Mushuau Innu First Nation. He would like to see a boardwalk in Davis Inlet to educate young people on where they came from, happy memories and sad ones. But his focus today is on the now.
We may have a lot of challenges in the struggles in Davis Inlet, but the struggles take us to where we are right now. I think that's where we need to remember it.
Strides have been made. Homes have running water and heat. More children are going to school and graduating. And more children in care are staying within the community. But John Newey says short-sightedness on behalf of the federal government has left Natuashish in a predicament it's been in before. Over the last several years, dozens of new homes have been constructed here in Natuashish. Soon these boards will come off the doors and windows and new families will move in. But in a community of just over 1,000 people, there are about 100 families who still need a place to live. That's forced some to leave the community and others into already overcrowded houses. This is 2002.
My room.
Those once new homes are now in need of repair. Some are vandalized and damaged. Others are worn from 2 decades of unrelenting winters. The federal government says it uses a formula to determine how much money a reserve receives based on population and remoteness of the First Nation. In the last 5 years, Ottawa says it has spent an additional $8 million on housing in Natuashish. But Newey says the population is growing. With 30 to 40 babies born each year, that's not enough.
I know one single parent who has about 5 grandchildren and children living in one place. So it's a 3-bedroom house, and 13 kids, It's sad sometimes to see that still living this way, that we're the same place that we're trying to get run away from, get away from, right? It's still it doesn't make sense. It's 2022 and we're still living like this, and that's what bothers me.
3 reports by the Canadian Human Rights Commission in 3 decades. Federal and provincial government failures throughout. On housing, the report notes population growth has outpaced federal funding, sparking a severe housing crisis. In education, disparity in quality and accessibility. In child welfare, children were taken into care outside of their own communities, disconnected from Innu culture and language. On healthcare, the 2 Innu First Nations mortality rate is about 3 times the Canada-wide First Nations average. An acute health crisis.
The Canadian Human Rights Commission released a report on the Innu people of Labrador. In short, it says Ottawa has ignored the Innu's rights.
It could be changed simply by the federal government acknowledging its responsibilities in order to start the process of negotiation of self-government and devolution.
Once that's done, they will then, through self-government, be able to take responsibility for some of the things that are causing so much difficulty.
Don McRae first visited Davis Inlet in the early 1990s. He's been a co-author on all 3 reports, outlining the hurt and damage done by ripping the Innu away from their way of life. One of the biggest harms, he says, was the federal government's refusal to bring the Innu under status agreements when Newfoundland joined Canada in 1949. Now the feds have a lot of catching up to do in Natuashish and in the other Innu community of Sheshaji.
When you didn't do your job for 50 years, surely you can try to make up with it by working faster and more efficiently to get it done.
In 2021, Don McRae tabled what he believes will be his final report on the Innu of Labrador. He doesn't think he'll be around for a 4th report, but hopes someone is if things don't change.
Until they get the ability to have self-government, until they have the ability to make decisions about themselves, they feel, I think with some legitimacy, they're never going to be able to move forward.
Peter Panashaway is a community leader. By 26, he was Grand Chief of the Innu Nation, was later the driving force behind negotiations of the Impacts Benefit Agreement between the Innu Nation and the Voisey's Bay Nickel Company.
We've carved ourselves a future in Newfoundland and Labrador.
He was also an MP in Stephen Harper's government.
You will see people paying the price, the same price.
But one of his longest jobs, negotiating land claims and self-governance for the Innu. 30 years now and counting.
My first inkling of the challenges we're going to have was in 1991.
And as formal discussions start on land claims, would you bless those who speak for the provincial government, for the federal government, and for the Innu Nation?
When we started the what's known as the framework process, just to talk about the agenda items. What are we going to talk about in our agenda? It took 6 years of monthly meetings. And you very quickly realize after 6 years, that this is only the agenda, and it's taken us 6 years.
I do not expect the negotiations to be easy.
What you quickly realize is that governments, have the time, have the people, and they really, at the end of the day, don't care. So they can, keep rolling the process, and they can afford it. And at the same time, they can starve you using finances. So governments tend to use finances as a weapon.
At issue is self-governance, giving the Innu back control of their own lives. To many, this is the most critical piece to a successful future.
We want to control, we want to have a full say over child welfare, we want a full say over education. Anything that affects our communities, we want to have a say over that.
Pinashaway says Canada and the province won't relinquish control, at least not without clawing back funding.
Is it trust or is it racism, right? Racism to me is that one group of people feel that they're superior over another group. They know what's best for the other group. And I think that's what's happening. Canada and Newfoundland feel that they're superior to the Innu, therefore they don't want to let go of that authority.
The Government of Canada says it acknowledges the existence of systemic racism and says it's working to change its relationship with Indigenous people to one based on the affirmation of rights, respect, cooperation, and partnership, and that it too recognizes the critical need to conclude the agreement between Canada and the Innu. The Innu have started to take back some control, starting with education. There are more graduates now than ever, and an increasing emphasis on Innu-led teaching.
Awesome.
Prior to 2009, about 5 students graduated from high school each year in 2 Innu communities. This year, both schools expect over 30 graduates. But in June, the Natuashish First Nation, Mushuau First Nation, and the Innu Education Body filed a Canadian human rights complaint. It estimates funding from the federal government is short $7.5 million and doesn't consider the cost of teaching in remote areas with a different language and different needs. The federal government says it's open to discussing financial support beyond existing formula-based funding.
They don't believe we could do it. That frustrates me. That frustrates me because we work so hard. We work so hard as a school board. Parents work so hard to get their kids to school, and those kids work so hard to get through school. And when you have a government that basically says, we don't trust you to run your own schools, but we can only give you this much, see if you can manage. And I think we're doing pretty good since we've taken over. But we're still not there.
Children are graduating, but getting them to post-secondary is another thing.
This way? Yeah. See the bear?
Yeah, I can see the bear really clearly. The pokers capture the stunning beauty of Natuashish and northern Labrador, its wildlife and landscapes, northern lights, and people.
Look.
Their 5 daughters are the perfect subjects. Nichelle and Aaron Poker were happy for them to leave that beauty behind, even just for a while. 3 of their girls were ready to go to university this fall, but there was only funding for 1, so no one went.
So we had vehicle picked out, we had apartment ready, we had all the registrations forms done, but the plan didn't go our way.
And now it's another year of worrying.
There are always new gas sniffers, there's always new drinking on the go, and they always manage a way to bring it in. Just can't catch them, right? So we got to accept that now. Just can't really control it.
Just outside of town on a main road is this cemetery. Stark, breathtaking, a place that is filled with color and toys. Because many of the people buried here are children, young men, and women.
On average, people don't live any longer than 48 years old. That's a very, very, very low mark. Right now I've passed it by 10 years, but on average, people die before 48 years old.
And those are the stakes. They couldn't be higher.
There's a lot of issues, like for example, right now we have a lot of suicides.
It's evident from the moment you step off the plane into the community that some social problems have followed to Natuashish.
Canada and Newfoundland can't deal with all the social issues that happen in our community. There are issues. They may have caused it, but there are issues. We just need to have the resources to be able to address those challenges.
This is Demetra, my youngest.
Phyllis Kachanak is from Davis Inlet. She moved to Natuashish as a preteen. She's been on both ends of the child welfare system. As a teenager, she was taken out of the community. Far away to Ontario.
I missed home. I don't know why. I don't understand myself. I miss my people. I wanted to face my demons head on. It's been a struggle, but I have.
And years later, history repeated. Some of her children were removed from Natuashish too. This time to the island of Newfoundland.
And that's how long I waited for my daddy. I didn't feel loved by my parents because they chose alcohol. I didn't understand that back then. Today, I understand the hurt they carried. And I never found his grave.
Kachenak carries a heavy load, one of intergenerational trauma, addiction, memories of sexual abuse. But she fought to have her children back, and now they are all together.
I watched them at night. I cry. I cry to stay alive for them. So many of my generation, my people, my relatives, took their own lives, my best friends.
It's the first day of school, and Phyllis is here to drop off her kids. It's not just their first day, but hers too. She's finishing her adult basic education.
Ready to begin my journey.
It's a journey Kachenak admits she's been on before, starting here back in Davis Inlet. She stumbles sometimes and is pulled between staying with her people and leaving for good. Old problems followed Kachenak out of Davis Inlet, and while the embodiment of a place lives on, there's still the task of what to do with Davis Inlet.
It's a project that's never been completed. One of them is decommissioning.
Where we can build the modern boardwalks and signs so we can tell our children, our grandchildren kind of thing, where we came from.
I like going up there and looking at the houses, saying this is my house when I was young. For me, they should leave it alone.
For those looking in, Davis Inlet was a symbol of despair. But for Gregory Rich, even with that tremendous loss, his feelings for this place are complicated. There were happy memories of families, of love, of life.
Even though I suffered a great loss, but I miss this place sometimes.
Davis Inlet, it seems, is not just a symbol of the downtrodden, but of resiliency and what could be, if only given the chance.
As long as someone is willing to change, be the power, the motivator.